Barbara Felix. I'm a San Antonio artist. I was not born here, but I should have been. I was raised here. Got my degree at Texas State University in graphic design, but through my classes, had a passion for art and eventually worked my way to being an artist full time. I used to work at Citibank doing graphic design for like 20 years, and I retired early in 2022, and my art life has been just exploding since. I'm going to talk to you today about the portraits that I have in the show here, how I came to make that work, called The Color of Women. So let's see how it started. So I was invited by the city of San Antonio to create a portrait of Artemisia Bowden, who is known as the founder of St. Philip's College. And I was doing a lot of printmaking at the time. Monotypes is my medium, it's a process where you make only one print. I paint on plastic, you transfer it to paper, and that's it. You can't make multiple copies of it. You have to paint the whole thing over again, so it'll never be exactly the same. So I was doing a lot of that work, and I decided to do that method, but also for the first time I had been mostly painting and printmaking, wanted to try my hand at collage. And I've had this beautiful lacy paper and this other paper. And Artemisia Bowden was, she's founder of St. Philip's College. She started out teaching women how to sew, but then expanded it to other areas, and then eventually became what St. Philip's is today. So I wanted to use stitching because she taught sewing, and I've incorporated on the one on the right. They're stitching on the neckline. If you look at the beads, they're actually 3D raised acrylic beads. It was a very scary painting for me to do. And as you see, I have to paint everything backwards because to flip it to be on the right side, you have to always think about those kinds of things when you work with monotypes. Because if you put the person's face in the wrong direction, there's something about it that never looks quite right. You have to get it in the right angle. So anyway, so I created this piece, and then my father is a prominent doctor, or was a prominent doctor in San Antonio. He passed away in 2014. He's an OBGYN, and they opened a clinic in his name on the east side of San Antonio. It's called the Robert L.M. Hilliard Community Health Center. It's like a family clinic, but my father was an OBGYN. I got to do his portrait for that hot clinic. I did a large oil portrait of him, but because I'm his daughter, they said it was a conflict of interest. They couldn't pay me for that portrait, even though to me that portrait was definitely worth $5,000 or $10,000 because it was 5 months of work, layered oil, very realistic. I'm sorry I didn't bring it today to show you, but they would pay me for 2 other portraits. And at the time I was doing a lot of self-portraits. I would take people's dancers' bodies from TV shows and put my face in the men and women, and I made this Dancing with Myself series. But they were kind of sexy, and I thought, oh, these aren't going to fit in a family hospital setting. What else can I do? And so I thought, I'll paint sisters in my family that are in medicine. I have 2 sister-in-laws in medicine. This one here is my sister-in-law, Tricia Hilliard. She's a pediatrician here in town. And then I did also my sister-in-law, Yolanda Hilliard, who is an OBGYN. And this shows you, me seating her. I decided to do them with stools. This is kind of where the idea of me doing women barefooted began. I love the human body. I love drawing hands and feet and painting them. So I had her pose for me barefoot on the stools. I love the way what your feet do when you're trying to balance yourself on the stool. I think it's really lovely. And so that became, and unfortunately, there's the beginning of the piece as I'm developing it. And then here's me, like the flowers were 3-dimensional. And then I put the collage, the clothing, and you can see the monotype painting because I did the monotype again for the portrait part. And then I pieced it all, and it became, this is the painting. That's the finished painting. And so the background, I painted through lace and then transferred that. This whole process, except for the clothing and the flowers, is monotype. And then, now I come to the paintings that are here, which actually one of them is right out the window, right here, and the other one is upstairs. I have been such a fan of, my mother had a lot of close friends, women friends. Her friendships were always important to her. They were always helping each other, these women. And she really inspired the importance of my female friends in my life. And I also just love when I see other people that have close friendships. I just think it's such a beautiful thing. So I decided to create this series, The Color of Women in close friendships. So what I have them come, I do a video shoot with them. I have them talk. I ask them to be animated with their bodies, move their hands or gesture while they're talking. And I film that. And I tell them, talk about whatever you want, because I'm not capturing that conversation. I'm just capturing the way you move and the way you hold yourself and the gestures you use when you're talking. And then I put I either sometimes use the exact image, or I might put two different poses together in a collage. I think on this one, you can see, I forgot to tell her to take off her shoes, so she had to go take off her shoes for my barefoot portrait. And then I don't necessarily, I use the clothing as a pattern, but I don't necessarily paint what the clothing is or use papers. So there's me trying to get a closer up of Becky's face Tara's face, so that I could get her in the portrait correctly. There's just the portrait this is the one that's right outside the window. So I painted through lace on a wood panel to make the texture in the background. I really wanted the idea of just exuding femininity really strongly. And to me, lace is one of those things that, what's more feminine than lace? And then I have this drawer that's just full of these expensive decorative papers that I buy at art supply stores. And I use those to collage, and I just kind of come up with my own combinations of what would look together in the portrait. But then these also have audio. They have the women talking about their relationship. There's a QR code. You could hear the audio if you want it yourself. But I also, these two, I can give you a summary in case you didn't have time to listen, that they met in 1992, that they have a very close relationship. Like it's like a sisterhood. They describe it as love at first sight when they met each other. And Tara, who's on this side, the right, she's the wife of Dr. Averill Sutton, who is an OBGYN, and Becky is a wife of Dr. Carlos Duke, who is a nephrologist and internist. And I met them through various events that I would go through with my father. My father was part of the alpha, not the AKAs as the females, but the male counterpart to the alpha, the AKA sorority group, the fraternity chapter of that. He's part of the Van Cortlandt Society and also the Boulé, which is a very uppity, I must say uppity, it's very, the upper echelon of Black people in the community that have done huge achievements in the community. That's that organization. So he would invite us to these formal events, and I would see these people together, and I picked up on who I always saw together at places. So I invited them to model for me, and then after they model, what I have them do is I have them record themselves talking about the other women in the portrait. And then I put the two audio files together. They did it at the time. I had them use their voicemail to leave me a voicemail. And I think on Becky's, on the right, I think she must have been in a dark closet or something, because the quality of the audio is like she's talking really softly and doesn't want anyone to hear her or something. But it's a beautiful story. The stories are kind of like, they'll make you, they can make you cry maybe, if you start connecting it to your own friendships. This is the portrait of Thelma and Barbara. This one I got an award for this portrait, and this is the one that's upstairs. These women met in the early 70s through Jack and Jill organization. They were also involved in other organizations together, like the San Antonio chapter of Lynx and also UT Health Center of Excellence for Women's Health. They enjoy sharing stories about their grandchildren and cats, and Thelma loves Barbara quilts, and Thelma loves Barbara's quilting, and they just and Barbara describes her love of Thelma's warm, loving personality and her beautiful smile. Their husbands, for Thelma, her husband is my brain is Charles Clifton Andrews, who used to have a radio program in San Antonio back in the day. And then Barbara's husband, who recently passed, is Dr. Leonard Lawrence, who's an anesthesiologist. And he also, I mean, they're pioneers in medicine for Black physicians here in San Antonio. So that you can see some of my process again, how, you know, I do the portraits and then I start blocking out, you know, like where the clothing pieces are going to go. And then you can see as I put them together and then I add them to the panel that I create, which is always scary on this part. And I'll show you on the next, because I'm going to show you an extra one that I did that is part of the series. I don't have as many pieces in this series as I wish I had. But this is a third one that I have done. And these are of my two sisters, Robbie and Ruby, they're like 3 years apart, but they are like bestie friends. They're my sisters, and I'm jealous that I'm not in that circle, but, you know, I also appreciate, you know, their tight-knit circle. And when I did their portraits, it was just going to be the two of them. But when I got their audio, they talked so much about their daughters that I decided I'm like, you want to know who these little girls are? They talk about their daughters being the same age apart as they are. They taught them their love of things like the movie The Wiz and The Sound of Music, and they take them on trips together, you know, and they spend a lot of time, and their two daughters are very close, just like they are. And so I said, I have to put these girls in here. But since the girls weren't necessarily talking, I kind of decided to make them like silhouettes, like they're being talked about, but they're not in the portrait. So I didn't do all their clothes. I kind of just left the idea that they're being discussed and they're part of the portrait, but they're not. They weren't the main focus. But as I'm going to tell you that with gluing these down is very tricky, because right here on this one, I don't know if anybody would notice, but there was a part where I got too much glue underneath and I didn't smash it down enough. And once that glue hardens, there's like nothing you can do to fix that. So I would have to torn it off and start it all over, you know. So anyway, this is the work that I've been doing in this series. I think I stopped there. Any questions? Thank you.